Hello everyone, it's Silvia. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to have a look at my top 10 mass market decks for spring. Okay, so I don't have any specific order, but I do have both tarot decks and oracle decks, and so I'm just going to start with the tarot decks. So what do we got here? We've got the, well, this is the Spanish version of the Fairy Tale Tarot by Lisa Hand. This one was published in Spain by Seer. Back then, when I got this deck, the deck in English was still out of print and it was incredibly expensive. And honestly, I didn't want to spend hundreds of dollars in it, but I found this Spanish version. I speak Spanish, so that wasn't a problem. Or at least, let's say, I understand 80–90% of the book, of the companion book, which is actually really interesting. And so I didn't feel like I had to buy the new version when it came out, especially because I believe it came out in Australia only a couple of weeks ago, and we're allowed to buy it from the US, but it's not actually in stock in Australia yet. So with all of these problems, I still have this one. I still really like it, and I think that it's actually quite nice to have a look at the different language every now and again. But this one is my choice for a deck for spring because of the fairy tale themselves. There's another deck by Lisa Hand which is about fairy tales, but it's about really dark fairy tales, and I'm talking about the Ghosts and Spirits Tarot. That one is certainly a deck that is interesting, amazing, fascinating, and the stories are really dark and very sad in many cases. So I would definitely not recommend that one for spring. Spring is all about rebirth, it's all about awakening, it's all about the bees and what the bees do, and it's all about falling in love as well, and it's all about opening our horizons and trying and start anew in life, and it's actually a really nice time of the year. I will say that obviously this video is dedicated entirely to the Northern Hemisphere, because in the Southern Hemisphere we're actually just entered autumn. I will post a video just for us in the South with all of the deck that I think are very conducive of that kind of a slowing down atmosphere that we get in autumn. So zooming in, I'm going to show you the cards and let's have a look. This is a really nice deck. And by the way, I am so sorry about the artificial light. There is a massive storm raging outside today, right now in Sydney, which we really need, honestly, because it was so hot last week. We had days with temperatures around 36 up 39 degrees, and that felt really suffocating, and it wasn't going down at night. We still had 25 to 27 degrees at night. So we're really happy about this cooling down of the weather. So I have to use the artificial light because there's not enough natural light, but I hope that it's okay. So we've got here, you can definitely recognize the style. Lisa Hand's style is a signature style. There's no two ways around that. Obviously there is a lot of interest, paying attention to the details here. As you can see, in this case, for example, this is a tree and it's got a form of a face, a human face with the nose and the eyes. And it is really nice, but there's also a pentagram here, for example. There are curls in here. So this is her typical style, paying attention to all of the details. You can see it here, for example. It looks like they're just swirls of smoke, but it's not. They actually also have a shape, and you can tell these are the nostrils, the flared nostrils of a dragon, and the eyes, and another dragon here. And if you spend some time with this deck, I will have to say it keeps on giving. Like, it's one of those decks that would actually be an excellent decks to study for a group, for example, a group study, because it does have a lot of all of these stories. I mean, imagine 78 cards with 78 different stories that we may or may even not know, because sometimes storytelling, I believe, is very regional. So there will be some cautionary tales about not wanting too much, or when it's tales for kids, for example, not paying attention to strangers, you know, stranger danger and all those kind of things. So when the warning, or what we call the morale behind the story, might be similar country to country, the way to express that, the characters in the stories may differ. And so it is always very interesting. This is one of the things that I actually really loved it, when I'm very passionate about. I am a massive fan of Grimm, and there was a show with you know, there was this Nick who was an investigator in the police in Portland, Oregon, but also he inherited the gift from his mother's side of the family, and it was a Grimm, and basically he was the one that could see all of the paranormal beings that populate the earth. And that was fascinating because each and every episode had a different kind of paranormal being, and the concept was very similar to Supernatural with Dean and Sam Winchester. And they also had to deal with the different supernatural being for each and every episode. And I have to say, for both the shows, the creators have actually done a lot of research, because you could tell many things that they were saying, they were telling about that particular supernatural being, were actually true. And so to me, that was a discovery. It was fascinating, not just because, of course, I had a crush on Dean Winchester, but also because I really loved the way in which I was watching a show, I was having fun, I was really liking both the characters, but I also, and ultimately, I was learning something about folklore. And so this is one of the decks that I actually really love, because it tells me a story, it tells me something, it tells me what is happening behind a particular kind of image that at first impression might not be telling me much, but at the same time I know that there's something behind that and I really want to learn. So this is a deck for spring for me, because this is one of those decks that really invites you to dig deeper into your approach into tarot, and there's no better time to do that than spring, I believe. But moving on to another deck, so another tarot deck that I believe is really great for spring, and this one is my indie edition of the Curious Travels tarot deck by Seer. There is a mass market edition that came out a few months ago, so I don't have the mass market edition, so I am slightly cheating. I know that today is all about mass market decks, however, I really wanted to talk about this deck because this is my spring and going towards summer kind of deck, and I really didn't want not to talk about this, and so please excuse me. Yes, this is the indie version, but you can get a hold of the mass market version, and as a matter of fact, sooner or later I might actually splurge and buy the mass market version as well, because as you can see, the indie one did not come with a guidebook, and I have no idea if the guidebook in the mass market version is good or not. As a matter of fact, if you're watching this and you have the mass market version of this deck, please let me know in the comments below whether you think it's a valuable guidebook. If you know me, you'll know what I'm looking for, so let me know if you think that I should like it or not. This is an amazing deck. I really love it. I love all about it. I love the colors, pastel, but at times also very saturated. I love the art style, soft, but in certain cards really kind of strong. I love the fact that it's got gold foil, but it's a matte one, so it doesn't really lift your attention away from the cards. And I don't even have a way in which I can angle the cards. Perhaps this way you can actually tell that there is gold foil here, but it is matte, so I really like it. And it is an RWS clone, but at the same time it does have its own spirit. I mean, look at this Seven of Pentacles. I think it's probably one of my favorite Seven of Pentacles of all time, because I don't necessarily like the Seven of Pentacles. When I pull the Seven of Pentacles, I probably groan. I probably go, oh no, what do I need to reassess now? What do I need to change? Have I taken the right path? Do I need to move forward? What do I need to know? And all these kind of things, because the Seven of Pentacles comes after the transaction or the transition of the Six. And so it tells you that you kind of need to retrench a little bit and you need to look at what you've done so far in order to be sure 100% that you're doing what you want. And so the Seven of Pentacles does kind of give me that kind of vibe of doubt in myself, and I don't like that. But this is a fantastic card, and I have to say, sometimes it just so happens, and I don't know whether it's just for me, and please let me know in the comments below, do you really generally don't dislike, I don't want to say the word hate, but do you dislike a card? And if you find a tarot deck that has that card, then it's a really beautiful card. Does that change the way in which you like or dislike the card? Do you actually prefer, do you still have the same problem in reading the card, or is it because you really love the card, is it actually better? I feel like the experience of reading this card in this deck is actually really cool because I love that card. And sometimes I actually find myself almost hoping for this card to appear because I like looking at it so much. And I could say the same for a number of these cards. But as you can see, some of these cards do have a really darker kind of background. And that is one of the reasons why I believe that this deck is for spring, but probably towards the end of spring, when spring already feels like it's moving into, it really wants to move into summer. Because it is not just pastel colors, it's not necessarily soft, it's actually kind of strong. And the Sun card is just absolutely magnificent. So I really love this deck. It is a summer or late spring summer deck for me, but at the same time it's also very balanced, I have to say. So it is one of those decks that give you very specific vibes. And let's say it's not shy in making you feel these vibes, but at the same time, they are very balanced in the sense that you don't feel like you want to focus on the element of air in this deck or the element of fire. It's not just for your feelings and emotions, it's pretty much grounded. It's about everything. It's about everything that the message is about. It's about everything that you want to think about, and also everything that you're going through, because it does have a few cards that are rather intense, without saying confrontational, because I don't necessarily think that the Judgment card is confrontational, but I will say that it is kind of intense. And so I am really curious to know, and also can you please let me know if the mass market version also has the Traveler's cards because this one is an additional card to the Major Arcanas, and I really like it. Being a traveler myself, it is extremely important that the mass market deck keeps this card. And so highly recommend this deck. It is absolutely fascinating, and it's actually aesthetically very pleasing. But this is not the only thing that I'm looking for in a deck. Certainly when it comes to the aesthetics, and because we're focusing on those particular spring vibes that we talk about, aesthetics are important, because I would definitely not go for a deck that has incredibly sharp contrast, incredibly strong colors, and very contrasting kind of saturation. That would be probably a summer deck for me, depending on the prevalence of colors. Whether it's dark colors, I would be probably winter. If it's brighter color, it'd probably be summer. For example, there is a really beautiful deck. It's the Book of Shadows, The Alchemist Story by Andrea Aste, and the colors of that deck are screaming summer to me. It is just absolutely amazing, and I really love it. But because they're so saturated and intense, that is not a spring deck for me, it's a summer deck. So today you're going to notice that there's gonna be more softer kind of decks rather than really strong and bold kind of color decks. And another one that I really recommend for spring is the Earth Woman tarot, published by Los Carabeo, created by Tara Ellis. Tara Ellis is also the creator of a couple of oracle decks. I believe one of them is the Earth Song Oracle, so that one would obviously pair up really well with this deck because it's the same kind of art style. But I also like to pair it up with another deck that, you know what, it's actually, because it's also part of this video, it is an oracle deck. I'm actually gonna show you these two decks together because I believe that they complement each other. They are absolutely amazing, really beautiful. and I really don't want to miss out showing you how much I love these two together. So if you just give me 1 second, I'm going to set them up. Okay, so the oracle deck that I was talking about is this one, is the Feminine Wisdom Oracle by Leah and Drake, and this has been published by Rockpool, but it's one of those deluxe edition, so it is slightly more expensive than your usual. But it is, however, an amazing deck. I don't necessarily think that when it comes to deluxe editions, we should expect a lot more. There are publishers that when they think about promoting as a deluxe edition, they actually give you something more, perhaps a bigger guidebook, like for example Welling, or in some cases they give you gilding, like in US Games, some of US Games decks. In other cases they may give you additional cards, or maybe I don't know, a gimmick or something like that to make you interested. When it comes to those Rockpool decks, to be honest with you, I don't see any difference between a standard edition and a deluxe edition, other than obviously the bigger box, which we have here. But at the end of the day, the shape and the format of the deck itself, so the cards are exactly the same size. And yes, these ones are gilded, but I have a lot of non-deluxe edition Rockpool decks that are also gilded. If you think about all of the Season of the Witch, for example, they're all gilded, they're really nice, and they're not deluxe. And when it comes to the guidebook, let me just show you. This is what I would, it is slightly bigger, fair enough, but it's not hugely, it's not huge at the end of the day, and it does have exactly the same format of any of the non-deluxe decks by Rockpool. So I don't know whether I necessarily justify the $10 additional that they market for. It is fine in the sense that I understand that the costs are higher, but I would, since they're not giving me that much more when it comes to the actual cards and the guidebook, I would prefer to spend $10 less and for them to package it in the normal non-deluxe boxes. But that is just my opinion. If you love your boxes, which is absolutely fine, then you will like these ones, because they are obviously they open up like a book, and they're different. They're not a two-part box. There's a ribbon, so there's a couple of things that are worth considering. So these two together, absolutely fantastic. As I was saying, really amazing when it comes to the spring vibes that we're looking for at this time of the year. And again, I'm pretending to be in the Northern Hemisphere, even though I'm not. But as I said at the beginning of this video, I will do a video just for us in the Southern Hemisphere, because we are entering what is actually my favorite time of the year when it comes to, let's say, temperature wise. And I don't know whether it's me, because I'm changing, you know, when you grow older. Oh, it's not necessarily a matter of age. I believe that in my life, I've had different approaches to seasons, depending on where I was living. I don't know if it makes sense, but when I used to live in the Netherlands, for example, I used to hate winter because it's incredibly cold, and I used to have to wake up at maybe 6:30 a.m., which is not bad, it's not for the time, but because at 6:30 a.m. when it's -8 degrees outside, and my car would be completely covered in snow and frosted, and it was incredibly difficult to get it to start because it was an older car. So there was a number of reasons. As obviously being in the Netherlands, it was fairly high up, and what happened was that it was pretty much dark, completely dark at 3:30 p.m. And so, you know, winter felt like you were always in the darkness, and always kind of bothered that it was really cold, because in the office that I used to work in, they had this idea about never setting the temperature over 18 degrees, so it was actually freezing. And so there's a number of things that I really did not like about winter. But when I used to live in Italy, I used to love winter, because winter in Italy, sometimes we used to have the snow, but not too much. And so the snow was still that kind of element that was an incredible surprise, to be waking up and looking outside your window and finding everything covered in snow and soft vibes and that kind of silence that goes with it that I really love. Couple that with the fact that generally speaking, whenever there was too much snow, the school were closed. So we all loved when that happened, because that meant that we could go to the park and play with our friends. And obviously I'm talking about when I was still going to school. So now that I'm in Australia, but at the beginning I was living by the beach, literally by the beach, and I used to love summer because on the coast in Sydney, it's actually you have a really strong breeze. So even when out west it's 40 degrees, by the coast it's still 32, 34, but with a really nice breeze, and that was absolutely divine. And you tend to have 6 to 9 months of actual summer rather than fading into different kind of seasons. But then I don't know what happened, but it started raining all the time. Sydney is becoming more and more subtropical. And so when it started raining all the time, we just considered we might as well go, towards the mountains. And now I don't like summer anymore, but I actually really, really love autumn, because it is that time of the year in which when you live close to the mountains, it feels like you want to cozy up at home on your reading chair with a blanket and your cats and, drinking a tea and reading a book. And sorry, I forgot to talk about these decks, but you've seen how much they go well together. It's just an amazing match. And together they really talk about that renewal kind of energy that we expect from a deck that we want to use in spring. And so I highly recommend these two, especially when you use them together. They are both, as I said, mass market. The Earthwoman Tarot, if you don't live in Italy, might be on the rather expensive side, because I believe in Italy it's the usual 26 euros, but don't take my word on that because I don't live in Italy anymore. But it's, generally speaking, Los Carabaos not super expensive in Italy. Obviously in Australia it is rather expensive. I don't know how much it sells for in the US. If you live in Australia, the Rockpool Oracle is a deluxe edition, so it's about 34-35 Australian dollars. And as I said, I don't know how much it sells for overseas, but I do highly recommend those two. They're really, really beautiful. Moving on to another deck that I really believe expresses at its best the energies of this time of the year, of spring, is the Herbcrafter's Tarot. And watch me every time that I have to say this name because I cannot pronounce it. So I don't know if I can, okay, I can show you here. Do you see the R, B, C, R? Those letters, one after the other, for me, is incredibly difficult to pronounce, and so I will make a mistake. So please bear with me if I just repeat the name five times, because I just cannot say it right. But it is this deck, it is this tarot deck. This is by Joanna Paul Colbert, but the book has been written by Letitia Guthrie. I love this deck. It is not a deck that I would actually use or recommend even for divination, but when you look at it as a study deck, this is fantastic. It does have this kind of really strong, grounded approach to nature, and it uses that by showing you that the traditional meanings of the decks, as they belong to tarot, to the traditional tarot, can also be seen in the herbs and fruits and everything that is represented on the cards here. So absolutely in love with this guidebook. Amazing. It tells you a lot about mint. It's the 4 of water. And then it tells you the Latin name. Take time to refresh your spirit, prevent plenty from becoming too much, quench your thirst with gratitude, and so on and so forth. This is really interesting because I don't know much about plants, unfortunately, and this is giving me at least a little bit of information in order to be able to work with it with a bit more knowledge, let's say. And let's have a look at the cards. So it is one of those older decks, or at least my edition, and so it's a very nice US Games cardstock, not the one from the 80s unfortunately, but it is a really nice one. So as you can see, there is that same kind of art style that we recognize if you have the Gaian Tarot, which by the way, it is going to be reprinted by Schiffer, so the same publisher. However, I have seen some images and I don't dislike it, let's put it this way. It does have green borders, and when I saw them for the first time, I thought they were homogeneous green and I didn't really like them. But then if you look closer, you'll see that they have some kind of a marbling on them. And I actually really like that. So I don't know whether, I don't have the deck. I don't know when it's going to be released in Australia. So I don't know when I will be able to see it with my own eyes. But I think I'm going to buy it because I have the original by Llewellyn. So the Guy and Tarot was first published by Llewellyn with a different cardstock, different borders, different font, all sorts of things. And then it was picked up by Schiffer. And Schiffer did not a great job. Can I say it that way? They didn't do a great job. So I'm actually really looking forward to grab a copy of the new edition, which, you know, maybe they will redeem themselves and it will be interesting. So as you can see, it's all about plants. There's not much human presence unless it's about a hand holding a plant. But it is very, very interesting, and because of this really strong approach and very earthy kind of approach to nature and all of its resources, it really talks about spring to me, and it's the timing of the year in which nature is literally waking up. And so it also demands more attention from us because we need to become more productive, and by being in tune with how productive nature itself is, at the same time we can find more intention to our actions and to everything that we want to do. It is also one of the reasons why you know, they do say that you fall in love in spring. There's a number of things you are in tune with nature, obviously, because that is the time in which you prepare for you know, reproducing, creating your life, and that's exactly what it is. So I really recommend the Herbcrafter's Tarot. See, I have to separate the two words, but I am okay if I separate it. So from now on, I'm always going to split the word in two and I'm gonna be fine. Let's have a look at the next deck. And so moving on to the next deck, this is also very much related to nature and the way in which we also feel like we want to relate more to nature because of spring. And it's the Bee Tarot by Christopher Hughes, and the artwork is by Nadia Turner. I love this deck. It is, to me, it's a very airy deck, probably because I look at bees and because they're flying. You know, there is that element of air that they remind me of, but also because it's one of those incredibly interesting kind of decks that actually presents you with a valid suit of swords. So I believe that in some cases, and it might be just me, but I have the impression that sometimes creators don't necessarily like the suit of swords, and they do a fantastic suit of water, they do a intriguing suit of wands, they do a nurturing suit of pentacles, but when it comes to the suit of air, which is the suit of swords, they kind of drop the ball, and they just go for the most RWS clone that they can think of, or if they still have some kind of a modern approach, then they tend to have a rather negative approach to the suit of swords. They feel like the intention is for each and every card to depict something very shadowy, which is not always the case. And as a matter of fact, I believe that we have some of the most cathartic experiences you can go through as a human being when we look at the suit of swords. I mean, the overthinking of the mind in the Three of Swords is very human. There's no two ways around that. You don't need to be someone who's experiencing anxiety. You know, if you are, obviously you will feel in a Three of Swords situation or even in a Nine of Swords situation, but that can happen to anyone. And you know, the rest that you need in the Four of Swords, who hasn't gone through that? Or even the unfair advantage and knowing that you're in a situation where there's absolutely no way that you can win, but you still have to do it. That's the Five of Swords, and that's very human. The transaction of the Six, in which it tells you that you have to embark upon a journey, but you really didn't want to, just so you have to go to a better place. I've been there. I've absolutely been there at the time in which the Six of Swords was one of my stalker card. I was pulling the Six of Swords almost every day for me for about 2 months, and then I understood that I needed to move from that place. and the anxiety, or also the cage of your own make, you know, the Eight of Swords. There's a number of things that I believe really reflect human nature in the Suit of Swords, and it's a pity when the creator, just because they probably don't really like the Suit of Swords, they just get away with doing and just an okay job, let's put it this way, rather than something really unique that would be what they could do. So that is my take on it, and maybe you disagree, I could be wrong. It really depends on what you feel about that suit and how you reflect with it. But I work really well with the guidebook as well. This is really interesting. I love all of these cards because the aesthetics are very nice, but when it comes to the Suit of Swords, actually it does give you a very unique approach, which I always appreciate because, as I said, I don't find it everywhere. And so really, really nice. But as you can imagine, this is an incredibly spring type of deck because of the bees. You know, the bees are always very busy and they're always busy creating, producing, nurturing. These are the backs, by the way, really beautiful. And let me just zoom in because of course the box, being a Llewellyn box, is rather big because they also give you a rather big guidebook. But when it comes to the cards, you have your usual format tarot size, so it's rather nice. And this is also in linen. So this would be interesting because someone put in the comments you should do a video with all the mass market decks that have a linen top coat or a linen cardstock. And you know, that would be an amazing idea. The only thing is that I wouldn't even know. So I would have to go through all of my mass market decks to double check whether they're in linen or not. As a matter of fact, I believe, I could be wrong, but could you please tell me if the new, the mass market version of the Tarot of the Curious Travels, is it in linen? Because the indie version wasn't. In any case, this one is in linen, very, very nice, you know, touchy feeling. The tactile experience is amazing in this deck, not just the visual one. Of course, you know, there's a number of things that are very intense and perhaps also confrontational. The world of bees is not just roses. Is that a pun? Okay, if it's a pun, please excuse my pun, but I actually mean it. It's not just about roses, as you can see here. There's a number of things that can go wrong in a beehive. And there's a reason why there's a very strict society. So you will have the worker bees, you will have the guardian bees, because the queen bee needs to be protected at all times. Because I don't know if you've ever seen a queen bee. I have. It's not the best experience. I wouldn't even know how to describe this, but if you're allergic like me, seeing something that is as big as, let's say, this, it kind of scares you because you think erroneously, which is not true, but you think the bigger it is, the more powerful the venom would be and the more chances I have to go into shock. And it's not true. I'm not an expert, but they told me that is not true. So we were talking about bee stings, okay? So this is a bee sting and it's the Justice card. And there's a lot to say about this card because more often than not, what happens is that when a bee stings you, so bees sting in a different way than wasps and hornets. When a bee stings you, if the sting is really into your skin, it's breaking off from the bee, and it is very likely that they actually die. So it is the last act, and obviously they don't sting you for nothing. That is something that my husband, who works outdoors, and this is literally his job, he would tell me all the time, he's never scared of bees, never scared of bees, because he knows that. And he knows that they wouldn't just sting you for nothing. If they are attacked, of course, they will have to defend themselves. Or also if they're defending the queen bee, then fair enough. But he says he's a lot more scared of hornets, especially because they can sting you and they don't die, and they couldn't care less, and they are quite aggressive, and also their venom is rather powerful, I would say. So I am actually really scared. I'm not scared too much of bees, but I am really scared of hornets. Hornets and wasps. In Italy, we don't make that much of a difference between the two. We have wasps more than hornets. Sorry, it's just, why does the English language have so many words with like 4 consonants one after the other? I mean, didn't they imagine that these words were difficult to pronounce? At least they are for me. In any case, let's move on. I love that it's the justice card, because it really tells you that there's no deed that goes unpunished, whether it's a good deed or a bad deed, and at the end of the day, you're not the only one that is suffering the consequences of something that you've done. There's someone else that is always necessarily involved, and justice is all about understanding that. So I really like this deck. Very strong spring kind of vibes. Really like it. Highly recommend it. I saw it on sale every now and then. There is no rhyme or reason, but every now and then it does go on sale on Amazon, and so it might be worth checking it out every day. I mean, I'm just saying, if you don't want to spend, because in Australia this one would be about 50 bucks. So obviously if you don't want to spend that much, you might want to check out when it goes on sale. There's a few more decks, so let's wrap it up, because otherwise I'm gonna be here forever. So I'm talking about Last Year's Tower now by Chris and Donnelly. This is the deck that we are studying with my members. We're having so much fun studying in this deck, because it's not just because it's one of the most beloved decks of all time, but it's also because I'm actually integrating the study of this deck together with the latest book that Chrisanne has published. So that is called The Tarot for the Light Seers, and it's a hardcover book. Really beautiful. The teal color of the cover is absolutely my favorite teal color. And as I was saying, with my members, we're doing weekly studies. I'm sending material, I'm filming videos, I'm creating custom spreads, and doing, for example, last week we've done a guided meditation and path working, because that is also recommended by Chrisanne in a new book. And so I kind of explained that, because not everyone will be familiar with what a path, when you do a path working in a card, it's not necessarily something that everyone does. So I thought it was very interesting. So if you want to join my membership, so basically the Sunlight and the Starlight members have access to everything, including all of the material, all of the videos and the live. And the Fairlight members only have access to the live, but the live is quite nice because we can, everyone can participate. You can jump in on camera with me, or you can stay in the chat if you so prefer. And so that is quite cool. So this is a spring deck for me because of the colors. It is again probably one of those decks that I would recommend for the end of spring, when spring becomes warmer, the days become warmer and the light, the sun sets at a later time during the night, during the evening. It is the time of the year in which you are ready to take it even one step further. So it is really interesting that way. And I really love the colors. I have to say, I really love the colors. I mean, these are absolutely amazing. Together like this, the saturation is perfect for my taste. I mean, obviously this is very personal. You might not be interested in this deck, you might not like this deck, which is totally fine. I personally really like it. I think that it was one of the first decks that was trying at least to give some kind of diversity to the cards, but still maintaining a focus on the RWS system. And it was a modern take on everything that we knew up until then. So it was in a way revolutionary, and so I kind of respect Chrisanne for creating this amazing deck. So the Light Seer, definitely a spring, but end of spring, I would say, towards summer kind of deck, not just beginning of spring. Because I know that in many countries, beginning of spring is still really cold. Back in the Netherlands, it used to snow up until April. So obviously it was already, spring. Now let's move on to the next deck, which is this one here, and it's the Little Prince Tarot, which is by Rachel Paul and Martina Rossi, and it has been published by Lo Scarabeo. It's not a deluxe box by Lo Scarabeo, so this one is very affordable. I love the story. I mean, who doesn't? The Little Prince, Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. I've talked about Antoine de Saint-Exupéry a number of times because he is one of my favorite authors, and I always try and read it in the original French because it is a very atmospheric kind of writing. I absolutely love The Little Prince, fine, but my favorite is Vol de Nuit, so Night Flight. And Antoine de Saint-Exupéry was a pilot, an airplane pilot. And so in Night Flight, it talks about the atmosphere and all of the, I immediately made a connection with the Suit of Swords. So that would be, if they made a tarot deck based on Vol de Nuit, on Night Flight, it would be a very airy deck because it's all about what the pilot is thinking, what his mind is going through whilst he's flying at night, and he encounters a number of problems, really, really dangerous kind of cloud turbulences and stuff like that. And it's extremely interesting the way in which his mind has been trained to stay calm. And I'm not going to spoil the end. There is an English version, so if you want, you can read it. And it's a novella, it's really short. But my goodness, that is the best writing. Seriously, one of the best writings. And also the Little Prince has got some of the best writings I've ever seen or ever read. The Star card is probably my favorite Star card of all time because it is just expressing at best that sense of hope and looking up at the star and hoping for guidance. So I really, really love it. But I love all of the cards, and the story itself is very, let's say, it does embody the spring and the energy of spring, about renewal of a friendship, of course. But there's a number of things that happen, and it's very interesting recognizing the cards and recognizing all of the tales of the Little Prince whenever he talks about what he has been seeing whenever he's been traveling, because he is the prince of a satellite or of a planet, a small, very small planet. But he is the prince of this planet, and he flies to different planets, and he encounters a number of things, and he talks about all of the things that I've seen to his mate, his companion that is there with him, because he actually crashed into the desert, and so they met because he was there. And so he talks about the rose, and I think that is a fantastic way to symbolize friendship and love and the community, but also the kindness and the affection that you can feel for someone else, but also the way in which sometimes life puts us through things in such a way that we need to take a step away from each other sometimes, you know what I mean? But at the same time, it tells you that you're still incredibly important for this person, and so never lose sight of them, because they will be back in your life, and sooner than you think, and then it will be a fantastic reunion, and that's something that actually happens. But you need to go through the story in order to understand the character arc and the emotional fulfillment of the Little Prince himself. That is a fantastic tale for spring, I reckon. Really, really amazing. And so we still have 3 decks to show you. So there's going to be one tarot deck, and then I have another couple of 2 oracle decks. So let's go with the other tarot deck, which is this one here, is the Rosebud Tarot. And again, it is because I do recognize roses and flowers in general with spring. Having said that, there's a number of flowers that actually thrive with a different kind of climate. And nowadays we can probably get any kind of flower at any time during the year. I mean, I used to live in the Netherlands, and we had so many greenhouses. It was just absolutely amazing. what they could do, what they could grow even in the middle of winter. And so nowadays you can really do a number of things to, to grow veggies even when it's not the right time of the year, to grow flowers and so on and so forth. It is one of the things that I really love about this deck, that it is called the Rose Tarot, and it makes sense because there's always this element of roses that you can find in each and every card. But it's not obnoxious, it's not something that is just put there just to have the element and just to make it recurrent on all of the cards. So you tick a box, yeah, put all the roses in all the cards. No, it is mostly part of the scenery. It's integrated in the elements that are portrayed on the cards themselves. Obviously this is a collage deck, so we have so many collage decks. In the last 5 years I feel like we've been bombarded by collage decks. I don't like all of them, and as a matter of fact I think I did a video a few months ago about my favorite collage decks, my top 10 collage decks. But I have to say, I've actually, one of them I am probably going to rehome, and I'm not gonna say which one it is, but I am going to rehome one of them because it just doesn't resonate with me anymore. And I also, because now that I'm looking into all of these new Kickstarter campaigns, for example, there are so many collage decks that are being presented in these campaigns, and I don't necessarily feel like I need more collage decks than what I already have. So it is difficult because a collage deck cannot really give you an additional reason to buy other than its aesthetics, because when it comes to the elements it needs to be incredibly specific, and sometimes it cannot be because it's a collage deck. So you have to work with what you have instead of drawing it. I don't know if I'm making any kind of sense, but what I mean is that it is more flexible to be drawing elements yourself rather than having to source them out of photos. Obviously that could be also, you could do anything you want nowadays on Photoshop, but it's still kind of limited, when you compare it to how free you are when you're actually drawing a deck. In any case, really, really beautiful deck. One of the ones that I actually prefer in my collage decks collection. And now the time has come to show you another 2 oracle decks, and one is really, really springtime kind of vibes, and it's the Oracle of Awakening by Lelania Simone, who is, by the way, also releasing, well, right now I think at the time of filming, the campaign on Kickstarter is still on, but I believe that at the time in which I will be posting this video, it's probably ended, so my apologies for that. Check it out anyway, because I'm not entirely sure. You might be lucky if you haven't backed it and you want to check it out. It's the Mythweaver's Tarot, and it's actually really beautiful, and it's kind of different from her style. So we've got the Oracle of Awakening and the Cosmic Seed Tarot by the same creator, which are quite similar, but the Mythweaver Tarot, which is the one that is currently founding on Kickstarter, is actually really different, and I really like it. Like it looks like it's gonna be one of those decks that is rather interesting. This one is beautiful. It's called the Oracle of Awakening, so of course it has its own space in this video because it's all about waking up. It's all about having recuperated. If you did it right, you probably recuperated all the energies that you lost during summer and then autumn. You did recuperate that during winter time because you have been given the opportunity to rest. And the spring is about waking up. It's about probably taking stock of what you've got and understanding that you need to use it, you need to start working again, you need to be open up to possibilities in life, because it's all about being open to saying yes every now and then, and do something new and do something that is not necessarily within your comfort zone, and it feels really scary at times. But please understand that nature, animals, do these kind of things all the time. They do stuff that they don't necessarily feel comfortable with, but they do it because they have to, and they have this imperative on nature that tells them that they have to keep on living, they have to preserve the species, which is a really interesting concept. By the way, I stopped at this card because this is my favorite card of the whole deck, the Unknown. With these colors, it's just absolutely fantastic. I really love it. And by the way, because I was showing you the Light Seer earlier, this is a deck that actually pairs up really nicely with the Light Seer's Tarot, even though on my desk right now I only have the pocket edition or the tin can edition, and I usually prefer to use the full-size tarot rather than the mini one when I use it in pairs with the Oracle of Awakening. Well, simply because of size, there's no other reason, but look at these two together, they are absolutely amazing. Even the font is very similar. You can see that is very similar, even though the art style is different, because in some cases you do have a bit of collage still on the Oracle of Awakenings, but the colors are very, very similar, and it does pair up really nicely together. Also, when it comes to when you want to, for example, focus on one of the keywords on the Oracle deck and you just expand the message with the tarot, it actually works really, really well. So in some cases, some of these cards also have a question or they have an affirmation, and so you can use that when you want to use it for journaling purposes, for example, or meditation. But it's also, I would say, more personal growth rather than divination when you use these two together. But it is a very interesting part of our work as tarot reader. To be honest with you guys, I do divination just when it comes to members readings or clients readings, or sometimes for myself or friends. But 90% of my work is about self-growth, and also the work that I'm doing with my members, because that's what my life has become when it comes to tarot life. So obviously having a YouTube channel, having a membership has been a huge influence on the way in which I relate to tarot. And I have to say, it actually has improved it, because I now feel like I am part of this community, especially with my members. And it's really incredible. It's very, very incredible feeling. In any case, as you can see, absolutely great match between these two. If you have the standard size of the Light Seer, it will match up even better with the Oracle of Awakenings. But I just don't have it on the table right now. So this one, Oracle of Awakenings, highly recommended, as I said, for you know, those spring vibes that we need to focus on. And then, well, that's the last one. So last but not least, as I always say, I had to talk about at least one of the seasons of the Witch Oracle cards, because this one is actually the Ostara one. And obviously because Ostara is towards the third week of March for you guys in the Northern Hemisphere, so you still have a couple of weeks more or less to prepare for it. But Ostara is the moment in which you really need to start getting the wheels in motion. You really see that. And I think that this is the usual, you know, the Rock Pool edition by Lorraine Anderson and Juliet Diaz. This is with the illustrations by Tihana Lukovic. They've done a fantastic job in all of them. I really like all of the Seasons of the Witch Oracles. I have all of them. But when it comes to Ostara, I think that they've actually done something particularly beautiful. I don't know whether it's because I actually like Ostara as a Sabbath in the Wheel of the Year, or because they actually done a fantastic job. But I think that it really incorporates really well the fact that we're still feeling winter in a way, because obviously the spring, the dates for spring in the Northern Hemisphere, I believe, is the 21st of March. I'm not entirely sure whether it's the 21st or the 23rd of March. Please excuse me, it's just that ever since I've moved to the Southern Hemisphere, I'm just used to the first of the month. So for us, for example, the 1st of March was the start of autumn. So we don't follow exactly the opposite of you guys. We are already in autumn. You guys in the north right now, at the time of filming, you're still in winter, but you're going towards spring. So obviously Ostara, when Ostara comes, it does point to the moving to the next season, but at the same time it tells you that you can still feel the influence of winter somehow and the cold of winter. And so as you can tell, the colors are not necessarily what we've seen so far. They're not soft, they're not pastel colors, they're still quite saturated, they're still quite strong, and there's a lot of darker colors. But at the same time, the symbols presented in the cards, the images, the characters on the cards, the animals are always, you know, focused on Ostara and the meaning of Ostara. And so this movement, this progression, this evolution, this idea of having to get back spring cleaning. This one is a fantastic card to explain this concept. It is a spring cleaning because you literally have to make room for something new that is coming, or something you're preparing to do. And so it is time to get rid of something that no longer serves you, that you still hold on to it when it was winter time because it was okay, but now you have the energy to look at it with, you know, an honest pair of eyes and understand that it doesn't serve you anymore, and so you can actually get rid of it. I absolutely love Spring Hike, Spring Rain, Tea Party, and so on and so forth. Really love the way in which they have produced this deck. It very much resonates with me. But all of the decks that I've shown today, I have to say, they are quite interesting when it comes to spring and spring vibes. If you have other decks that you think I should have mentioned, please let me know in the comments below. I'm always open to considering different decks, and sometimes I don't even know some of the decks that you mentioned, so that gives me the opportunity to check them out. And sometimes I actually have you know, bought some decks out of your own recommendations, so it's always welcome. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for being here, and see you next time. Bye.